all of them, every nation on Earth which has any reserves, with the possible exception of one, have got the opposite policy when it comes to supply. That is to maximise the production of coal, oil and gas. And the two policies cannot be reconciled. The only one which has a slightly different policy is, believe it or not, Saudi Arabia, which where King Abdullah has said that oil in the ground is worth more than money in the bank. And so they want to leave some of their oil in the ground to sell at higher prices later. But with that exception, everybody is going hell for leather to get as much fossil fuel out of the ground as they can. Now,
well, Ecuador is Plan Verde.
Well, that's true, actually. You are right. So thanks for correcting me there. Ecuador is the exception there. So unless there is a global policy for leaving fossil fuel in the ground, two things happen. First of all, the supply side policy undermines the demand side policy. The carbon price stays low, so it's not attractive to invest in renewables. Secondly, we inevitably breach the 2 degrees limit, because as some very important papers published in the journal Nature earlier this year show, you can burn an absolute maximum of 60% of current fossil fuel reserves without breaching 2 degrees.
Right, so we have to figure out how to leave 40% in the ground as an absolute minimum, and that's at 2 degrees, which is an iffy number anyway.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it doesn't take into account the tar sands and gasification and all these unconventional. Can you talk a little bit about the unconventional method?
Yes. Well, that is simply conventional reserves of coal, oil, and gas. Now, a reserve is only part of the resource. The resource is everything in the Earth's crust. The reserve is that part of the resource that's good to go. In other words, it's been prospected, it's been identified and measured, where the technology exists to extract it, and it's economically viable to extract. So that's the takeaway part of the total resource, and it's just those reserves of coal, oil, and gas, the ones which are good to go. We can use a maximum of 60% of those, but of course at the same time, companies are developing a whole load of unconventional fuels, like the tar sands in Canada, some of the dirtiest fuels on Earth. Oil shale, or emulsion, different kinds of bitumen around the world. All of these make petroleum, crude oil, look green because they are so dirty and so polluting. And so that means you can use much less than 60% of the total amount of fossil fuels which is ready to go, because you've got to add the unconventionals to the conventional ones. But the calculations of how much carbon is in the unconventionals is too complicated for me to do, so I can't work out what the total percentage needs to be. And it's amazing that no government is even attempting to do that. There's been no research on this at all, apart from those two papers.
That's the first I heard of it when you said it.
Yeah. There's those two papers in Nature, but no government has taken that forward to say, if that's the case, what are our policies going to be? Well, the obvious two policies is, one, you start identifying that part of the reserve which you're going to leave in the ground, and two, you impose a global moratorium on new prospecting.
Yeah.
That's so obvious. It's so obvious that if you're serious about preventing more than 2 degrees of warming, that's what you have to do. Yeah. And that's why I say that none of the governments meeting in Copenhagen are serious about preventing 2 degrees of warming.
Right. Then on top of that, we've got the process, which seems to be, at this point, being dictated primarily by the United States and China. Even the whole way of doing the proceedings, and now locking out a lot of the people's voices in the NGOs. What are your thoughts about where we're going and what we can expect to come out of this?
Well, it's back to the old 19th century opaque diplomacy done between a few grandees with everybody else shut out of the picture. This is completely the wrong way to go at it. Completely the wrong way to go at it. There has been no strategy at Copenhagen, amazingly, for engaging civil society in these discussions. And it's just, it really is the old 19th century model where a load of blokes with big moustaches would sit round a table and carve up the world between them. Now, you might have thought, with the tremendous upsurge of participatory democracy coming from the grassroots, that we've got beyond that model a little bit by now, 150 years after that sort of colonialist model of deciding what happens in the world. Not a bit of it, far from it. They've gone to much further lengths than any previous climate talks at shutting people out. I mean, it has been a revolting process. Here I am, came to Copenhagen to participate as best I could, to talk to people and the rest, and I haven't been able to get into the conference centre the whole time. What's really galling is you see these climate change deniers in there, in the media rooms, just scoring hit after hit, and I can't get at them. I can't go and argue with them.
Yeah, that must be really frustrating for you. Another voice that is the voice of hope for me since I've been here, and I've been very impressed with the innovation and the creativity, the ability to use the internet and mobilize the youth voice, and they want to and they should be heard because they're really more on top of it than the people that are sitting in there debating. What are your thoughts about the youth voice here and the potential for bringing about great change?
Yeah. Well, the great thing about these people in their 20s here is they've got this great combination of technological savvy. They are so good at using the new technologies. I mean, really in a really innovative and clever way, and are mobilizing through the use of those technologies. But they've also got that fire and that energy, which we all remember from sometime in the Jurassic when pterodactyls bothered us on our way to school. They've got all that, and they can stay up all night as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm bragging.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. These kids, they just keep going. It's fantastic. I love it, and so they're making the running. And us older guys are sort of struggling to catch up, and we're doing our best. But it's these young people who know how it all works. I mean, I could just about operate my mobile phone. But these people sort of have studios in their rucksacks. They just they're amazing at the clever ways in which they're using technology. If you look at, for instance, the 350 campaign, or the Age of Stupid people who are here running their stupid show every day, and a whole range of people like that doing some very savvy, very clever stuff, broadcasting over the internet, mobilizing over the internet, and then just not letting up. What we need is a combination of the older campaigners who have got the organizational experience, and the younger campaigners building these movements. And that's what we've got, but it just needs to be much bigger than it is at the moment. And if, as I suspect and now hope, these talks collapse, and I say I hope they collapse because there is no prospect that we can get a strong agreement now at Copenhagen, barring some miracle, barring Obama standing up and saying, right, I'm tearing everything up, and I'm going to have a 50% cut against 1990 levels in the US by 2020, and we're going to leave most of our fossil fuels in the ground. Maybe a thunderbolt from God might change his mind as he walks in. But
I'm afraid our infrastructure would kill him then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Barring that miracle, it would be far better to have no agreement than to have this really, really bad agreement that we're talking about. And then what we must do is mobilize as never before.